engage throughout the organization to provide meaningful, timely, and useful internal decision support information, not just financial reporting information in accordance with regulated financial statements. A key term for profitability analytics is internal decision support. The profitability analytics perspective focuses on causality, or cause and effect, which is the basis of the scientific method and logic. We don't feel constrained by accounting rules, though of course tax rules do matter. The focus is on real economic impact, the reality of resources, customers, processes, and markets. At the bottom of this slide, you see some financial and planning and analytic functions. And that's the area of the organization that execute the functions related to profitability analytics. The chart at the bottom shows some substantial difference between typical FP&A and the FP&A function supported by profitability analytics. The profitability analytics model incorporates the traditional elements of ROI along the left side of the screen, but not necessarily in a traditional way. Along the top of the screen, you see that the organizational strategic planning process is essentially used as a process map for applying profitability analytics concepts. PACE adopts the IMA view that traditional accounting work will diminish as technology takes over routine and rule-driven activities. Profitability analytics seeks to create a new framework for management accountants to engage across the organization to create information and insights for long-term value creation. Now, profitability analytics does focus on profitability. At least it has to date. But we recognize that value, I'm putting that in quotes, is an increasingly broad topic encompassing environmental and social value and many other things. We feel the profitability analytics framework can and eventually should be extended to incorporate a wider definition of value. So let's get into the model. The profitability analytics model consists of three elements: strategy formulation, strategy validation and creation of causal models, and strategy execution, or forecasting and decision making. Strategy establishes the organization's plan for identifying and addressing its markets and for mobilizing its resources to meet the anticipated demand. Causal models employ causality to model the strategy operationally in non-financial quantities and then monetize the revenue, cost, and investment implications of the organization's strategy. This validates or causes adaptation of the strategy. Decision-making employs the outputs of causal models, both operational and financial, to provide the organization's decision maker with accurate, relevant information they need to make economically sound decisions. Causal information for the decisions, large and small, throughout the organization will create long-term sustainable value. Whoops, forgot to do the last click. The next few slides will decompose the high-level model into its components. The profitability analytics model is not a step-by-step process at this point, but represents a guide as to how to think about the processes to ensure the result is high quality internal decision support information that management accountants can use to support decision making throughout the organization, from the C-suite to the shop floor and direct customer contact points. So let's decompose a bit. First, we'll talk about strategy formulation. Internal and external data are used to guide the formulation of market, operational, and investment strategies. The market strategy describes the current and expected conditions and opportunities in the market. The organization's plan to exploit those opportunities and capture value. An operational strategy describes the resources and capabilities available to the organization and how they are aligned in order to execute market strategy. An investment strategy for long-term value creation may be the most important part of strategy and will likely define how far into the future the market and operational strategies must look. Investments include, in our view, both tangible and intangible investments, not just traditional capital investments. Strategy validation, or causal models. Strategy is a function of expected causality. Internal resources and capabilities in coordination with external market forces that cause desired outcomes. The model at this stage is non-financial primarily, and the focus is on the quantities, capacities, and capabilities that must be achieved. The market model, based on the market strategy, describes the organization's structure and processes to achieve market penetration and revenue goals. These processes involve key revenue factors, including pricing tactics, capacity management, marketing campaigns, partnerships in channels, and compliance with regulations. The operational model, based on the operational strategy, lays out the organization's structure and processes to meet the anticipated demand, achieve operational excellence, and attain logistical robustness in the supply and delivery processes. The investment model identifies new investments, again, both tangible and intangible, whether expensed or capitalized by traditional accounting, and the capabilities required for new processes. Models must first be built using non-financial quantities, then monetized in a manner that reflects those quantities and supports decision-making. The revenue model incorporates the pricing and volume assumptions. The cost model monetizes the cost of resources and processes for decision-making and operational optimization. Both operational and cost models reflect the functioning of the entire organization. We are not thinking about fixating only on product and service costs here. Investment at this stage really starts to become three distinct components: acquisition, how to acquire or create new capability with financial or internal resources; capital preservation, how to ensure the capability being consumed can be maintained into the future. And again, this applies to both tangible and intangible assets; and cost of capital, how to ensure long-term investments are yielding a return that factors into the capital or resource outlay needed to create them. Monetization of processes and resources between these two columns should reflect forward-looking economic costs and not be limited to costs and expenses as defined and measured by financial accounting principles. Key economic causality factors explained in the Institute of Management Accountants Conceptual Framework for Managerial Costing are essential to building a model that effectively represents the actual cost flows in the organization. Whoops, sorry, went one too far. Strategy execution. Management involves forecasting, planning, and decision-making throughout the organization. Accurate causal models that reflect economic reality are essential to effectively manage the organization towards strategic success. Revenue management involves decision about product or service configuration, pricing, duration control, resource and capacity assignment, and demand management for customers and channels. Operations management involves process management and adaptation for actual demand, as well as cost, quality, and timeliness of product and service. Resource and investment management involves capital assets, human resources, intellectual property, R&D, and other essential tangible and intangible assets in the organization or being acquired by the organizations. Investments must have clear causal connections to strategic goals and the long-term vision of the organization. Causal monetary and operational modeling allow strategy execution to most effectively understand and adapt in volatile markets. Whoops, wrong way. There we go. Finally, we come to the point of harvesting results. With decision-making based on causal models that represent the organization's strategy, managers can confidently establish and logically adapt performance measures. Causal models support learning and innovation because the gap between results and projections has been established based on real cause and effect relationships. Understanding a result or a monetary effect is much clearer when you can methodically and logically trace back to an operational cause. And the last stage is strategy evaluation. That's the arrow at the bottom shooting back. As decisions are made and results realized, it's critical that management accountants assist management at all levels of the organization, understand what worked as expected, better than expected, and worse than planned. This feeds into a continuous improvement, organization learning, and decisions to revise strategy and tactics, and the formulation of innovative new strategies. So, I hope I've given you a little bit of an understanding of the profitability analytics model. Admittedly, this was high level and it was fast. PACE plans to continue to use the profitability analytics framework to push management accounting into a more prominent role as a business partner. We are evaluating and looking for field studies from organizations demonstrating excellence to organizations that have problems and need paths to improvement. We also want to engage with customer professional organizations. This means customers of management accountants, such as sales and marketing, manufacturing, logistics, boards of directors, literally everywhere in the organization. The question that we continue to ask them is, what more can management accountants do for them to improve their performance and their insights? Above all, we would love to engage you. PACE plans to continue monthly webinars, and we'll dig deeper into many of the components of the framework and the ideas discussed here today. Above all, we would love to engage you in development groups. to help define new ideas, refine current ideas, document and share successes, and even failures. I have a list on this slide of several possible topics that could serve as development groups, and there are many more. Please email us and let us know if you would like to work on one or more of these topics in some sort of regular meeting. We haven't determined if that'll be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, but we'll sort that out with whatever works. If you're not familiar at this point, we provide regular information and updates on our LinkedIn page for PACE. We also have a website, and that website includes a forum for discussion and continuing any of the topics you hear now with questions, comments, or your experiences. So I'm going to wrap up at this point, and we'll look at the questions. This presentation has been recorded, and in probably a day or so will be posted to the website and on LinkedIn. I want to give one more pitch for these development groups I discussed. If you're interested in working on some of these topics, please give us a sense of what topic or what aspect you're interested in working on, and email us at profitabilityanalytics@gmail.com. We'll collect some of those and then gradually get back to you with some at least initial meeting times to further develop the structure of these. So Monty Swain is going to zip through the questions and comments and manage that. Some of the other members of PACE are on the call and will also contribute if necessary. So Monty, what do we have? Any questions or comments?
Of course we do. Larry, great job on the presentation. I just note that if you haven't seen it, everyone, in the chat box, we have placed the link to the PACE website where you can join, and to the PACE LinkedIn organization where you can link to us. First question I have is, how does customer intelligence fit into the PACE model?
Well, we think of customer intelligence, I think, as part of the data that's collected for the marketing strategy. So I think that would be at least initially where I would say it fits. And I would also say it's a very important part. Now, it also has links into other areas on the revenue management side, understanding your customers, developing a product or service to allow it to be segmented so you can capture more demand under a demand curve is important. So certainly customer intelligence and knowledge of your customer is important everywhere. I would say, though, that probably the initial and primary entry point is in developing your market strategy.
Hey, Larry, Gary Kokens. Can we also
please,
add
Gary.
Measuring and managing customer profitability is included with customer intelligence. You're really getting a profit and loss statement by each customer. And
that fits in, into the causal models to a great extent. So all of these things have a very strong role in the profitability analytics framework. And of course, what I would say is, if you disagree with me, please let us know, and we can, this is one of those areas we're happy to further develop, but this is kind of the way we're seeing it.
I have another question. This is from the perspective of a CFO who says that in this model, most CFOs, if they're not, should be attempting to connect to all these issues. So what is truly new here? Again, from the perspective of CFO, what is truly new here in this model?
Yeah, okay. I actually agree with that comment. I think very good, thoughtful people are in fact probably doing all of these things. What we're trying to do is really lay out this logic, this view for everyone in the profession. So, we're probably not going to make the best much better, but we are hoping to make, the lower end and the average performers much better. The other aspect I think that is a little bit different here, and is often, I think, confused in the profession, is our focus on internal decision support. As all of you who are accountants at any level know, there's a huge amount of required and regulatory work that goes along with our profession, and sometimes the idea that providing internal decision support with a separate set of information with different constructs gets missed. And so I think perhaps the most novel thing that the profitability analytics framework presents is the idea that there is another world of work beyond that which is traditionally done, and it should be probably a 50-50 or even better split to maximize your contribution to creating value in your organization. Any other comments from any other PACE members?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, being one of the members who's wandered around the finance world for about 50 years, I would agree that that's a good point, but that about 5% of CFOs fit what the questioner described, and 95% are no place near it, which is why we want to draw more people into the mindset that the individual asked the question probably has, which is the correct one.
Larry, a couple of questions about causality. You've mentioned causality a couple of times in the presentation. Can you say a little bit more about what that means in the PACE model?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to think about causality. Causality is cause and effect relationships. And in PACE, when we think of cause and effect relationships, we're really thinking about, this disturbs some people a little bit, the concept of truth. Among the accounting profession, there's often a feeling that truth exists from your audited financial statement. And anything that disagrees with that audited financial statement is highly suspect and could not possibly constitute a truth. And so what we're saying with cause and effect is, don't go to your accounting rules, don't go to generally accepted accounting practice. What we're looking at for causality is the resources and the processes that are in operation to support the value creation in your company, and how do those really work? What do you observe, and does the monetary information you create clearly reflect that? And so causality really derives from the quantitative model, but it needs to be reflected in the monetary model. And so the IMA's conceptual framework for managerial costing says that the key principle for modeling for internal decision support information is causality, not time, not periodicity, not anything else, just causality. It's relationship to real processes and resources in operation in your company. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I sometimes like to just explain it to people in a simple example. I mean, when you've heard people like me go tear into people's cost models, especially manufacturers, that they're not based on causality. I mean, Think of something like utilities in a manufacturing company. Are they caused by a laborer working? Is there a linkage between it? There's things that happen that then set off a chain of events that happens. We want to make sure we understand how that works so we can work them both frontwards and backwards. I mean, cause and effect, if you think about it, is pretty fundamental. And so does receiving an order, what does it trigger? Having somebody check into your long-term care facility, what are the work activities that are triggered by that, and what are the costs that are caused by those work activities? So you want to make sure that there's a logical chain that connects all of these things. They don't just happen in a blob. So that's sort of, again, one of the ways I try to talk about it.
Yeah, let me add one more aspect that you made me think of, Doug, and that is the strength of the causal relationship. Because one can argue that, yeah, maybe utilities is kind of caused by the fact that a person's working because he wasn't working, but it's so many layers removed from the actual event that it becomes a very weak causal relationship. When we talk about causality, we're focused on strong causal relationships that are clear and don't distort downstream decisions like weak or not, or like weak or non-causal relationships that are, I'm going to use the word allocated. It's not a word that the conceptual framework for managerial costing uses, but allocations tend to be done at many strengths of causality, probably from none to weak to occasionally strong, although frequently they're all lumped in together into one big allocation pot.
Hey, Larry.
Larry, let me, we've got someone who stepped in here. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just, triple agree with what you guys are saying. I run a consulting outfit that when we talk to our customers, we basically say that profitability analytics is 90% operational and 10% financial. Because if you don't understand what your people are doing, how the process flow, the time that people spend doing things, and we work specifically in banking, that if in banking is 80, you can say 80% of non-interest expense in a bank is directly caused to the time people spend doing the activities they do. And if you can't trace that through, you can't understand how your costs are being created.
Yeah. It's a good point. I do just want to highlight, folks, it is 11:30, and I'm not going to personally be insulted if anybody is constrained by the half-hour requirement. On the other hand, this is probably one of my all-time favorite topics to talk about, so I am perfectly happy to entertain more questions and comments for a while.
Larry, I've got 3 or 4 more questions in the chat if you'd like me to serve them up to you.
Sure.
One question is, and I'll read it, the barrier to improvement has always been the fact that CEOs and CFOs do not think they have a cost modeling problem or are too focused on financial reporting. How does PACE plan to reach out and increase awareness?
Well, I agree with that one completely. And that's one of the reasons we're here. And, so the first thing we've done is we've created this framework and we're publicizing this framework. There'll also be a webinar in a couple of months by the Institute of Management Accounting on the Profitability Analytics Framework. We're doing all we can to create a body of knowledge that focuses on internal decision support and the need for causality and alternative models. And, in part, it's about getting the accounting profession to recognize and acknowledge that there's a need, that financial reporting, financial accounting is only one model, and the profession needs more models to be successful in the future and to add value. So I wish I had a magic bullet answer for them, or I wish I had $1 billion to start pumping advertising out, but I have neither of those. So we're working it the best way we can with as many partners as we can find. Thank you.
I think we should also add that part of what we're working on is the demand side, not just the supply side. Is that part of the reason is the expectations of the financial people haven't been as great as they should have been. When users of the information, as part of our research, we find that they're unhappy with it, but they're sort of feel they're handcuffed as to try to get it to be made better. So again, we want them to be aware of what they could have so that they can increase the demands and the expectations of their finance people. I found a lot over the years when people explain to me why they don't change the way they do their costing and management accounting is that nobody ever asked me to. The expectations was to do nothing but, hey, give me a budget that agrees with what I told you to make it come out as. You know, give me some information that supports the decision I already made. And that's fine. And everybody likes to collect their paycheck and that's it. We're looking also to, again, increase the demand for what's required of their finance department, not just tools for the finance department to supply it. And so that's, again, another one of the approaches we're using.
In that regard, Doug, could you perhaps mention your profitability expectations book and the idea that management accountants could give it to operational folks to understand better what the role management accountants could play in their organizations?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that the other gentleman on this particular call here somehow talked me into writing this novel, Profitable Expectations. And basically, it's a tool to be able to, one, explain to the traditional accountant ways, at least give them ideas on ways you can grow and to become a value-adding member of your management team. On the other end, it's not written in such a technical way. It's also a tool for users of information to look and see what they can get from their finance people and perhaps help motivate them to raise their expectations. I mean, they call it the Pygmalion syndrome. I wanted to call the book Pygmalion, but George Bernard Shaw already took it from me, so I couldn't use it. But it's basically you perform to the expectations that your boss has put on you. And if the expectations are low, your performance will be low. If your expectations are high, you can expect greater expectations. And so again, that's part of the purpose behind the book, is to give a financial accountant some ideas on how you can develop a variety of skills without using any technical methodologies. Again, the book goes through and explains how our protagonist was able to develop things using logic, reason, and interpersonal relationships to be able to come up with a much better result, but also to be able to give the users, the C-level executives, the guys on the floor, an understanding of, I can get a lot better stuff out of these guys. And it's within the realm of reality to get it. So again, that's part of the whole reasoning behind Profitable Expectations.
Yeah, for those of you who have read The Goal, this book is written very much in the story format of The Goal that Goldratt did many years ago. So it's very consumable. All right, any more questions, Monty?
Just one more. Someone commented that, and this was quite early. Some surprise about the focus on revenue and revenue management. This seems to be an area that management accountants don't have a lot of involvement with traditionally. Can you just say just a little bit more about that, the purpose in the model?
Yeah, so we believe, and as we were looking at profitability analytics, most of us have spent most of our careers focused on cost. And all of a sudden we said, there's another way to do things, and cost doesn't actually capture things like lost revenue opportunities or improvements to revenue. So there might be some things there that management accountants could add their expertise to. So we started looking into the that area, and we discovered a whole body of knowledge associated with revenue management and things like that. So with IMA, and Monty's being a little circumspect here, he led the project to write an SMA for the Institute of Management Accountants called Revenue Management Fundamentals. We actually found through our research some professors down at the University of Auckland in New Zealand who were teaching a management accounting course called Revenue Management. And that course actually had become the most in-demand course in the whole MBA curriculum. And what they did is they started out from the aspect of talking about revenue, and then gradually worked their way into all the traditional management accounting, decision support things, optimization, capacity management, and things like that. And what we've discovered as we continue to think about this is revenue management is growth. Revenue management is a much more positive discussion than cost cutting. And revenue management discussions, once you start looking, segmenting, considering options, lead to a whole slew of management accounting and managerial costing information needs that people wouldn't listen to if you started that discussion first. Started just a costing discussion. But when you started as a revenue discussion and you're talking about growth, it becomes a much more useful tool. So we thought we needed to include that perspective and really look for opportunities for management accountants to get involved in revenue management. Through IMA, we were also aware that Johnson & Johnson, in their training programs and probably beyond that, runs all of their new accountants and young accountants through a cycle in marketing and sales to support those functions. So there are some examples where leading companies are finding that number one, management accountants can contribute greatly to that function, and it adds a great deal of strategic insight to the information that they can provide. Monty, do you want to add anything to that?
That sounds great, Larry. I would add, and this is an extension into a couple of other questions that have come in terms of our connections to education and an impact or influence in the education sphere with these materials. I'm working closely with the Management Accounting Professors Association in largely in North America, but it's an international organization, part of the American Accounting Association. This is over 1,000 management accounting professors. We're making or having discussions with that group and introducing them to these materials. Again, there's not a lot that's new here, but the integration of all of this into a cohesive model and creating a demand effect by helping CFOs, CFEOs, and executives out there have a better understanding and appetite for better management accounting support. It's going to create an impact in the classroom, both the accounting classroom and the MBA classroom. These materials, the SMAs, the book, Doug's book, and future materials are going to provide materials that professors can incorporate. One person asked if the IMA is going to be incorporating this into the CMA materials. We are not part of the IMA. We're closely associated by virtue of shared of membership that we are associated with and being members ourselves, but this is not speaking to the CMA exam. That exam evolves based on actual, evolved use and standardized practices. So to the extent this gets, takes hold out there, we'd expect to see, future impacts everywhere. So that was on the education. I spoke to that being the active professor on the directors. Anything you wanted to add to that, Larry?
No, I just, I think what, certainly this is the idea of the engagement of practice versus education is kind of a chicken and an egg thing. Educators will tell you they follow practice. Practitioners will say they have trouble going beyond their education. So we need to work both sides of this and make improvements across the profession to embrace what I speak of as an internal decision support focus for the management accounting profession. And we've worked hard to do that. We've tried with the conceptual framework of management for managerial costing to get away from methodology debates. So we don't debate about RCA, lean, ABC. What we tend to say is, here's the principles and the concepts, look at those, then evaluate the various methods against what you need for your organization in terms of those principles. So we're trying to take it out of a, what do they call it? In academia, tends to call it a 3-letter acronym syndrome, and try to bring it more into a
Call that a
college
TLA
foundation.
syndrome, please.
TLA syndrome.
3-letter
So,
acronym.
so anyhow, that's just to follow up with Monty. So I think we're going to close this out. We've got a good many people that stayed on with us, and I really want to thank you for your interest. I want you to take one more step, though, if you will, and that is think about the topics in this area that you're interested in. Think about if you have experiences that could be great case studies, or if you're working at companies that could be case studies, and send us an email and tell us you'd like to engage with us in advancing this knowledge. If you have ideas we haven't covered, we're open to them. If you have new spins on the ideas we've covered, we're open to those. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to engage you and work to advance this knowledge. So thank you very much, Monty. Thanks for your help. Gary, Doug, and Rafe, thanks for your comments. And we'll look forward, look for our next announcement of our next webinar, which will probably be in early to mid-January.
Very good. I think that wraps us up, Larry. Appreciate everyone attending. Again, this recording will be made available at the PACE website, which we've put that link in our chat box. I'll put it in there one more time, and then we will be wrapped up. Let me get that PACE website in there. And there it is. Folks, thanks for attending. We wish you all a great week.
Hey, Monty, this is Gary. Will the 5 of us be able to talk privately?
I think we'll have to come back on.
Yes.
So let's leave and then come back on.
All right. I'm just waiting for people to sign off.